morning, everybody. It is
Good
Ruthie Rock.
morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday morning real estate marketing show with Ruthie Rocks, Ruth Allbrand, and I am Marketing Max. Today, we're going to talk about something that's probably prevalent more today with the use of computers and mobile phones that we got to stay aware of and protect not only your clients, but yourselves against this, which is cybersecurity. So we have a special guest. His name is Jack Lindberg. He was a realtor and a broker for over 13 years. And over the last probably 20 years, been a general contractor and real estate investor. And he's consulted with many firms like Google on their real estate team to talk about cybersecurity. So he's going to come on the show in a little bit to talk about that. But before we get into the cybersecurity with Jack Lindberg, Ruth, what is happening in Las Vegas?
Well, good morning. Lots of things are happening in Las Vegas. It's really, the market is trending in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
We came up a little bit in listings. We're up about 27 listings from yesterday, which is the first time this month that we haven't declined in the number of available listings. So, and if you look over to the column that says just listed, you'll see why, because we've listed 158 homes yesterday. So that's up 36 from yesterday. We put 94 under contract. So that's up also from yesterday. And closings, wow, we are up 77 up to 144 closings for yesterday. I think that's a record for this month. So that's really good. And the impact all these numbers have is, if you look last June and this June, we are only down 13.6% for June. And the importance of this is to show the trend. And in May, we were down 52.9% from last year. And in April, we were down 65% from last year. And then, of course, our green months, January, February, March, we were up. But then COVID hit. So we were down 65% in April, 52%, almost 53% in May. And June, we're only down, actually for the month, 22%. So we're trending in the right direction, which is really good news. And I just want to mention too, I've added something new, Max, to my stats, because I'm watching the iBuyer platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the Zillows, the Open Door, the OfferPads, the Redfins. And last year, they were 9.3% of our market in June. But this year, they're only 7.6%. And I hope that some of them aren't coming back. That's my... I know Zillow's coming back. Zillow's going to be a major player no matter what. That's just a given. You know, they have their own funding. They're not dependent on investors. And the CEO has already announced on NBC that he's looking to take over the real estate market. And
surprise,
right?
We saw that coming 4 years ago.
Yes, we've been watching it, and he finally announced it a couple of weeks ago on CNBC. Mm-hmm. And he said that because the real estate transaction can be seamless, and because he's got the mortgage company, he's got the home warranty, he's got the transaction desk, he's got a seamless journey from the time the buyer walks in the house till he buys the house. Yeah. Of course, now there's no representation from a realtor, but you know, sure. That's our fight. That's what we tell everybody. You have to be represented.
No, absolutely.
And some of the things that Jack's going to bring up too. I mean, realtors need to get more conscious about cybersecurity as they go forward. And this is another thing, just to let people know our value, you know, against these iBuyer platforms. So that's always my flag I'm waving, and my passion is to make sure that agents stay in front of people so that they can do business, because people know, like, and trust them, and they give them value. So that's always my pulpit. One of the things I just want to give a tip to everybody today: if you're out there doing listings, there's 4 F's that Brian Buffini came up with that you should take some authority on, and say that you do the 4 F's. You know, you insist that they do frequent cleaning, So timing of the cleaning, they have to do a frequency of cleaning the house because people are going to be coming through it during this pandemic. And then we have to be focused, the second F, meaning that there's certain surfaces that you really have to make sure that you clean with the proper solutions like hydrogen peroxide or alcohol. And functional. So you also have to use the right products. Like I just said, you have to use the products that actually kill the germs. And then from the pros, it's not funny, Jack. So from the pros, then you have to get the right people. And a lot of agents are giving, as closing gifts, are giving sanitation cleaning as a closing gift.
Mm.
So, and believe me, I mean, we may not feel that concern like the sellers do or the buyers do, but when we come forth and we tell them that, hey, we're going to take care of you, we're going to make sure that the seller, is doing these things, and all the agents are doing it, and then when the buyers come in, they have to wear the masks and all the things that have to be done with the hand sanitizers and everything, because it's a big concern. I think we're just so lucky in Las Vegas that our numbers are trending up. I mean, we are really lucky, and you have to congratulate the realtor community for continuing to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And more people, it's interesting. Just a side note here. I'm seeing a little bit more and more people utilize YouTube now to advertise.
Yes.
So I'm seeing real estate agents advertisings out there on YouTube. So interesting stuff.
Interesting stuff. Let's say hello to Leslie. She's here today. Hi, Leslie.
Yep. Good morning, Leslie.
Karen, you can't hear anything. I don't know why. Leslie, can you hear us?
Yeah, if you could chime in, Leslie, that'd be great.
Yeah. Let us know, Leslie, if you can hear us.
All right.
Okay. So let's get on with the show. I'll wait for Leslie to give us a thumbs up, but let's bring Jack on.
Absolutely.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There he is.
Jack, welcome to the show.
Sorry,
Thank you for being on.
I was giggling because you said when you're using the right products. I spent the first 2 weeks of the whole lockdown using Pine Sol and everything. And then I finally looked at the label and went, this isn't a disinfectant.
No.
But I was working hard. I was washing all my groceries when I brought them home, everything. It was crazy.
Well, fantastic. We appreciate you coming onto the show this morning, Jack. This topic, I can tell you, is very important right now. As we move more and more towards technology here, the people trying to hack our information are getting smarter and smarter and trickier and trickier. I mean, I've seen some emails just in my personal and my business emails where it's pretty hard to tell if it's a legitimate email or not unless you know what to look for. And hopefully you'll walk us through some of the things that you look for and kind of teach real estate agents and other businesses on how to spot cybersecurity issues in their email. And I know wire fraud, right, Ruth? Wire fraud was a huge thing.
It still is.
And it still is right now. People don't realize, dude, if you send a wire to the wrong bank account, I mean, that money is lost.
Bye-bye.
Like, there's no recourse to any of that stuff. So I can tell you as an agent, the last thing you want your clients to do is send a wire, all right, to the wrong account number to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. So before I get into that, Ruth.
One of the things I just want to mention on that, everybody, because this is going to be going out to realtors as well. The Board of Realtors offers a form that the clients sign that they will not do anything through email on wire fraud. Mm-hmm. And if they do, that the realtors have no liability. Yeah, and good. Every realtor needs to do that. After they do the agency disclosure, that needs to be the second form that they sign.
And that's a great situation because I was talking to a broker in San Diego where the client was advised like 3 different times, don't do anything through email, don't do anything through email. And then they did it anyway for $800,000.
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't listen. And of course, then they want to sue everybody. So.
Of course. But Jack, before we get into the meat of the conversation, I always ask this of all our guests. How did you get to Las Vegas?
Probably like most people, by accident. I sold real estate and built homes in Minnesota, and then one day I decided, why am I living here? It was very cold one day. What am I doing? And I didn't really have any close family, so I decided, okay, I'm going to move somewhere. And I really, when I left Minnesota, I was trying to decide east or west, and I wanted a sort of a mid-sized town. So I looked at Asheville, North Carolina, or Reno, and I took one of my construction vans, converted it to a camper, and drove the Rockies for like 6 months, just driving around like a hippie. And it was amazing. It was one of the best times of my life. And I ended up in Salt Lake City, really. And I ended up there before the Olympics. It was the late 90s, and I decided to stay there and flip some homes for a while. But to get out of Salt Lake City and try to have some fun, Vegas was driving distance away. So I kept going down to Vegas, and I met some friends and eventually met a girl. And of course, it was a girl that brought me there.
Of course. It's always a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was what, 15, 20 years ago or
2001.
2001. Okay.
Yeah.
19
So
years
almost
ago.
20 years ago.
Got it. So you've been here just about 4 years longer than I have. So you've seen the boom, the bust, the quick boom, and then the bust, and now kind of the recovery.
Oh, I've been part of the bust. That's the bad part. The bust busted
You're the
me,
only one.
along
Right,
with so
right.
many others. Yes.
Right, no doubt. So tell us a little bit about what you do now specifically, and how you consult with brokers, real estate, and just the real estate community with what you're doing with cybersecurity now.
Well, my career evolved. I mean, even as an agent, I was always techie. In fact, if you're old enough in real estate, you can look back to 1994. I was featured in Realtor magazine as a techie agent, and they did a little article on me. I had my Mac laptop, and I would slide it into my docking station. It would connect to my laser printer, and I would be on AOL, because AOL was it back in the early 90s. So I evolved from that to inventing technology ideas for the real estate industry, and cybersecurity was kind of a natural thing that came along, because once social media happened, people's information really started to become public, and a lot of it volunteered by the people themselves. So in that sense, it was pretty interesting. So originally what I did was in 2008, when the bust happened, I was doing an intranet type system for brokers. A lot of brokers went out of business, so I had to reinvent myself. So I wrote books on Facebook for real estate, LinkedIn for real estate, the Twitter startup guide, et cetera, et cetera. And I was out promoting Facebook and LinkedIn as great tools for getting, audiences and generating business for real estate. And then a couple of years later, I started seeing concerning issues. For example, a Time magazine article that talked about a couple of guys at MIT put together a math algorithm where they could take your birth date in your hometown and figure out your social security number in as few as 10 tries with their algorithm.
Wow.
So that started making me wonder, okay, I'm telling people to get on Facebook, but I might want to try to tell them how to get on Facebook, right? There's a balance in there somewhere, because Facebook's a great idea and a great method to get an audience and to get business and all that. There's so many people on Facebook, but you really don't want to give away the farm, right? So I tell people, it's funny because I see one of two things. I either see them lock Facebook down completely, or they put everything out there for the world, and there's a balance there. I tell people, put your phone number public, put your web address public, things like that. You're advertising them anyway. But the flip side is, maybe you want to try to deflect things like your birth date. I mean, eventually somebody's going to figure it out. If the good hackers are going to hack you if you become a target. One key tip on Facebook, and I demonstrate this in my class, is try not to make yourself a target. For example, I can go on Facebook right now and type the search on the top search bar. I can type cash buyer, and I'll get a bunch of posts from realtors saying, I have a cash buyer, $600,000. I'm looking for a listing, whatever. But that's an easy target. That makes somebody an easy target for somebody that's looking for wire transfer fraud, that type of thing. So what I tell real estate agents is use lists. Put your friends in lists. Ideally, you make friends with a lot of other realtors. You put them in a realtor list. And then when you make a post like that, you post it to that list. And then it's just not out there for a public search for anyone.
And
it's
your clients.
What's that?
I always tell people you have to a client
clients,
list.
yeah. Past clients or even just your career in general. But people, you have an idea who they are, versus if you post it publicly, then you never know who's going to see it. So yeah, the cash buyer thing is one of my don't make yourself a target thing, because Facebook is a very powerful exposure tool. And
For
so
sure.
you have to think about what you're doing on there, to be in case whatever you're seen doing is going to be seen by a lot of people.
Well, they're collecting data all the time, and one of the things you mentioned, by the way, everybody, Jack taught us a class on cybersecurity, and it reminded me of a gal who was having an open house, and she was showing all the fancy shoes and all the purses and everything that this family had, who, oh, by the way, they're on vacation, so if you want to come and see the home, just call me. Yes, and she was on TV because the house got totally robbed.
And
Wow.
that
That
was
was in
another
California.
article I saw was
Yeah.
Facebook burglars use Facebook posts to rob people. That was another thing besides that Time magazine article about the algorithm thing. So
Yeah.
what that did was it prompted me to start. I rewrote my classes that I was teaching. The first one was called "The Risks and Rewards of Social Media," and I talked about how to balance your information and get out there and promote yourself on social media for sure, but be careful about your personal information and what you're giving away. It's amazing what I can get from just a photo. So if you're posting family photos, then you probably want to post it to a list or to people that really you want to see it. The public doesn't need to all the time, but your friends and family probably want to see grandkids and pets.
If I could jump in, Jack, I think one of the things people don't realize is along these lines now, Facebook has albums, and you can create albums, and you can make them private. And then you can use those pictures just for the people that you want to send them to, or you want to see them. So Facebook is very cognizant of the tools it's employed, but people don't use them is the problem.
Yeah, they don't really know what's available. When Mark Zuckerberg was being grilled by the Congress and
Yeah.
Senate or whatever, he said, "Look, you can control all of your information on Facebook." And that's absolutely true, but most people just don't know how. And so what I teach in my class is, look, with lists, I can have my brother on Facebook and he'll have one complete, this is his experience. And then a past client, they'd have a completely different experience because of the way I've set my privacy settings. So it's completely customizable if you learn how to do it.
And I always, when I teach the Facebook business page, that's really where people should be sharing information about their business and nothing personal. And if someone wants to look you up personally, they can. And that's where you have to protect your photos and things like that in albums that not everybody can see. But when you just use a business page for business, you're pretty much isolated from people hacking into you if you follow the rules.
I hate business pages. You know why?
What?
Because I can't stalk people on there.
You can't. Oh. Yes, Jack's a great stalker.
The class I teach, seriously, the class I teach is part of a designation I created. And so the step to the designation is the first class. And then when they sign up, I go online and I do a white hat stalking report. And I show them, here's what a criminal can find. And those that use the business page and they don't do much on their personal page that I can see, it's frustrating because I want to stalk them and I can't. So what you're saying is it's great advice. Yes, is that your business should be on your business page.
Absolutely. You make a great point of what you wanted to display. I always joke on Facebook and other social media. I always joke with my wife, we're living in some crazy times right now. And I never thought I would want to own a gun. And for some reason I do right now. And I told my wife, I think this is how we prevent people from just messing with us. We just start doing family videos and photos of us doing tactical training, right, with like military people, shooting ranges and stuff like that, and only post the ones that we accurately shoot, so but you're absolutely right.
That's really a great strategy.
Yeah, when people start looking at you, that's probably not the
family. We're bypassing Max
right there, right? Yeah, we're gonna pass by that house to rob. But interesting stuff. So, what are some other tips that you can think of here that, realtors can really take out today when they're considering, their social media presence and what they're doing with it? their listings. And
my class is 3 hours, and it's not nearly enough time to cover everything. That's why, again, the designation I created is the class. It's me going online and showing them what I can find. And then the second part of that is a series of online videos where I go in and I teach details about how to control your data in Google. Delete if you want to, delete data, same with Facebook. I also talk a lot about public records. It's amazing what's out there in the public world. For example, in most jurisdictions still, there are some exceptions, especially in California, like Alameda County, Santa Clara County, which is where San Jose is, Cook County, Chicago, those types of places are the exceptions. But in most cases, I can go and with just your name and knowing the county you live in, I can go look up and see where you live if you own your house. And 85% of realtors own their own home.
Sure.
And
so if I want to stalk a realtor, pretty easy to do.
Jack, one of the things that you mentioned, and this happened to a friend of mine down the street right here in Vegas, is that she had her deed recorded, which is public record, with her signature, and they tried to get a loan on her house. Because they saw that it was very low, a loan to equity. I mean, she only owed like 20% of the value.
Right. And those that have houses that they own free and clear, which I believe, I think Jimmy DAGUE told me once recently that like 30 to 35% of properties out there are free and clear.
Free and clear.
And so if you don't have a loan on your property, you don't even think about checking to see if there's any liens against your property until you have to sell it, right?
Right.
So so that's another angle that they try to hit. So so really it's about controlling and limiting key personal information, informing your clients. If you're a realtor and you're working with clients, you need to educate the clients on proper behaviors and how to safeguard their information. And I'll tell you right now, okay, so 2017, I'm sitting down thinking, should I move forward with this concept of teaching cybersecurity? And I was looking through the industry, and I really didn't find any comprehensive training. I saw bits and pieces, and I thought, no, I need to put together a comprehensive course on this. And the number one thing I found is weak passwords. We're still all being taught to do the 8-character number symbol thing. That's not even close to good enough. It's a joke to the criminals. So
you need more than 16, don't you?
Well, in theory, any password you can remember because you're doing tricks like changing an A to an @ sign or whatever. They have algorithms for everything that we anticipate and think in our minds that we do, the tricks that we do to remember passwords. So in the end, I tell people you need a password manager. You just have to have gobbledygook passwords, and that's the best you can do.
So what do you mean by password manager? Like an application that?
Yes, like I use LastPass as an example. So LastPass sits in, it's like an extension in your browser, and then it's an app on your phone. So every time you try to log in LastPass, if you're logged into LastPass, it's kind of bird dogging you and reminding you, hey, I've got your password if you need this, and then you just plug it in from there. Of course, LastPass, you need one master password to get into it. So that's when I say, okay, now you have to use some kind of a way to, a really long master password.
Right.
Some kind of memory technique, but make it nice and long and difficult. The key is everyone's hackable. There's just no way around it.
Sure.
But if you're more difficult than the average person, I mean, it's like the story of the two guys walking along and they encounter a bear in the woods. And one guy stops and starts putting on his tennis shoes. And the other guy goes, what are you doing? You can't outrun a bear. He goes, I don't have to. I just have to outrun you. So
because the bear is going to get him.
Yeah, I try to get realtors to understand or to be better than the average, so the criminals go somewhere else. That's really about the I hate to say it, but it's probably the best we could do. So,
right.
Because they have the Black Hat convention here in Vegas every year, and these hackers are given challenges and they break everything all the time. There's just nothing they can't do.
And what is the Black Hat? Explain that for the viewers.
Well, so Black Hat is like the evil people, right? And White Hat is the good people. But what they do is they bring in the hackers and say, act like a criminal. And like Elon Musk, I believe when he created the Tesla, he challenged. I think he gave away $1 million, maybe. I think it was something.
Yes,
like that.
He did $1 million.
Yeah, hack my car and see if you can hack my car, and somebody did. And so that showed him what the weaknesses were, and then he went in and fixed them. So of course, it would be horrible if someone's driving their car and all of a sudden somebody from across the world took over and steered you into a tree. So I'm
Absolutely.
sure that's why Elon Musk did that. But
Right.
in the end, again, everyone's technically hackable. So I say, first of all, try not to make yourself a target. You're already a target being a realtor because people know you're dealing with lots of money. So don't be talking about the big cash deal you got coming up in a couple of weeks or any of that on Facebook. At least not publicly. You can talk to other realtors and things like that. But
good stuff. Yeah, lots to think about. We just kind of glean through over it, but we don't realize that this information is being used against us in some form or fashion.
My Facebook was hacked many, many times. And the reason why it was hacked was because people knew my email address and my phone number. So if they know your username, which my email address was everywhere, right? My phone number is everywhere. So they knew to use those two, and then they figured out what the password was. I mean, so I tell agents, get a Gmail account or something that you never use except for Facebook as your login. Don't publish it anywhere. So get a real foreign username that's an email address that you own, but you never use it except.
Try to hack me now at gmail.com.
Yeah, right. But that, and that's how we stopped getting hacked. And I don't have my phone number. I have a different phone number on there as well in case they, for whatever reason, they can use that to get in. Because at one point you could use either one. I don't think they let you do that. And now I have two-factor how do you say that word?
Authentication. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, so what do you think?
That's a Saturday morning tongue twister.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you think of the two-factor?
Well, I thought it was, another good, thing. In fact, I was kind of bragging about it in my class, but there's a detective here in Las Vegas, Detective Grace, that works for the cybercrime unit for the Las Vegas Metro Police. And I ran into him in a cyber nerd conference. And it's funny because when I walked up to him and I shook his hand and said, "Hey, I'm Jack. I teach realtors cybersecurity," he looked at me and said, "Well, you're not doing a very good job." I said, "Well, what do you mean? It's just not on me. It's what are you talking about?" But he said that real estate's a huge part of his job. That things that happen in real estate. So we talked, and he's actually contributing to my efforts. He shows up at classes sometimes, and I'm actually thinking I might try to video him and put that in my class because he can't always make the class, but I'd like to have a part of it. When I mentioned two-factor authentication, he said, "Well, have you ever gotten a phone call on your cell from your own number?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen that. It's kind of weird." He goes, "Yeah, that's when people can spoof your number." He said, "When they can spoof your number like that, then they can also get that two-factor authentication code that you get, right?" So he said it's not as safe as you might think, but it's still another effort you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Another step.
Because it takes a bit to try to spoof your number. It's not like it's easy to do. So you're just, again, make it more difficult for the hackers to do. And I do have another kind of a shocking thing, which is I tell people you can't use Gmail, and they say,
"Right,
what?"
I've been telling them that for years.
You can't use Gmail. You can't use Yahoo, MSN, any of those addresses. Why? It's the leading way that wire transfer fraud happens according to the FBI. What happens is the criminals take your Gmail address or Yahoo or whatever, and they just change one letter. And when they have information about the transaction and they want to send an email to your clients, they just send an email that looks just like yours.
Right.
A classic example was in an article that was done in the Bay Area by NBC Bay Area. They featured 3 buyers that had lost money in wire transfer fraud, and one of them was an example where it said, I don't know the name, they masked it out, but let's just say Brian, your realtor at gmail.com. And they did Brian, your realtor, and they took out one of the R's. Your realtor, they took out one of the R's, and you wouldn't even notice if you didn't think about it.
Right.
But that tricked a consumer into sending $89,000 to the wrong place. So the FBI says that's one of the leading causes of wire transfer fraud in real estate. They also interviewed the commissioner for the division in real estate. And the commissioner said, if that happens, where they're using a Gmail, the agent's using a Gmail, and the consumer loses money that way, we're going to investigate the agent for negligence. So it's one of those things where it's a responsibility issue for realtors now that they need to be up on this stuff and be responsible about how they interact with their clients.
Yeah, and from a branding standpoint, if you're a serious realtor and running a
Right.
business, you should not be using Gmail as your, as your business email. I mean, it it makes all the sense in the world, and now there's an incentive and a reason, security reason why you shouldn't do that either.
Right, absolutely. So it's not just a image thing; it's also now a licensing
Security.
thing. It will be more and more, because now the authorities are starting to figure this out, and they're going to start to hold the licensees more and more accountable. In fact, I just spent 3 days with the Real Estate Commission here in Nevada, and I've got 2 of the commissioners totally sold on the idea of making cybersecurity required learning for all licensees, and I'm working on the other 3. They know it's required to some degree, but I want to make sure there's no path to licensing where an agent doesn't take at least a few hours of cybersecurity training, just the basics, passwords, Gmail, using VPNs, that kind of stuff.
And I'm very anxious to help you. I'm just really anxious to get involved with that, because I have been preaching that to agents for years about the Gmail and about Wi-Fi. Stop using Wi-Fi.
In public places at Starbucks.
Right.
Yeah. It's just so funny how loosey-goosey people are. They have no idea.
Well, we're very trusting, too trusting.
Well, and again, what we forget as real estate people is we have a lot of information in our computers, whether it's an email exchange we've done with a client or whatever, where we have personal information about them. We've asked them in an email, well, how much do you have to put down? Where do you work? How much do you make? And we don't think about that's really important information for a hacker, and can target, to decide who to target and all that. So, somebody hacks into your computer and gets into your email, they get all that information. I mean, the first thing I would do if I hacked into somebody's email, I would search the word password and look for all of those passwords that you searched or forgot and got reminded or whatever. That's why a lot of times now when you go to get a new password, you tell us a website you forgot your password. Instead of just sending it to you, what they do is they make you reset it. They don't want to send it to your email where you have it in there, because most people don't delete those emails, and then it ends up getting hacked anyway. So there's a lot of little weird tips and tricks that happen out there that can make things safer.
Miss Cookie is saying the VPN helps with using Wi-Fi. Is that correct?
What the VPN does, it creates a secure tunnel, so that if you're sitting in a Starbucks and you're connected to the Starbucks Wi-Fi, anything you send, even if the criminals can grab it, even if you're going through a criminal's fake Wi-Fi that you got tricked into using, everything's encrypted, and so they can't decipher it anyway. That's what a VPN does. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network.
Right.
So I have an urban legend that I want you to debunk if you know it or not, right? So this whole thing with Alexa, and the Echo, and everybody having Alexa in their homes and on their phones and on their devices and stuff like that. I mean, if we have it in the room, is it recording or listening to us?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. There you have it. You didn't even hesitate there.
No, in fact, I'll tell you a step further if you want to do your own homework. For anybody listening, go to, if you have Amazon Prime, I know this movie is on there. It's called The Creepy Line. And it's named for a comment that the Google CEO made when he was asked, how much information does Google collect on their users? He said, well, we try to go right up to the creepy line and not cross it. Well, they were so far past the creepy line. They've even moved the creepy line.
Yeah, right.
So this movie is a documentary for both Google and Facebook, because they are a new business model, and it's what's it called? It's called it's a term. But basically, what they do is they gather as much information on their users as they can, and they sell that to their advertisers. And that's their model, is that as much information they can get on you. So
it's demographics.
Yeah, data
that's
collection.
the reason why Google, when Google first started, all they were was a search, and they were like that innocent company that was for the people kind of thing, right?
For the people, right?
And then they got big. Now they're the biggest lobbyist in Washington, by the way. But besides that, they realized that, once we give people the search results and they click, they go to a website, we lose them. We need to do more than that. So they created Chrome, so they could now track everything within Chrome. They created Android, so they could do things there. And then they, they've got all these tools. They've got Google Drive where you store all your documents. They search everything. The Gmail was another big tool that they read every email that you send, even the ones that are sitting in your what do you call it, the drafts box, the one that angry email that you wrote, but then you decided maybe I shouldn't send it.
Do you know what? You know that like with Dropbox, I used to tell agents, don't use Dropbox. It says right there in the terms and conditions that all the data you store there belongs to them.
Yep, and that's the same. In fact, the joke, I think it's in the movie, the comment was, if J.K. Rowling, the gal that wrote Harry Potter, if she had written it in Google Docs, she wouldn't own it. Google would own it. So it's, anything you put in there, the terms of service is the same with Facebook, anything you put on there. So you just have to be careful what information you put in there. And
so that makes a great question. Where do people store information right now, right?
On their hard drives on their computer.
A secondary hard drive for backup?
Well, I love to think that Apple is a superior environment, but I can't really.
I get it.
I've got one of those.
This is a Samsung, everybody, and Samsung is so fast. I mean, I can back up my whole computer on this thing in an hour.
Is that a solid state drive?
Yes.
Yeah, and those are super fast. Yeah.
Yeah, super fast. It's amazing.
Well, and I have to admit, I bought a MacBook Air recently, and it came with a 128 gig hard drive, which is a joke nowadays.
You can't put anything on that.
The very first
you
Mac
can't store your passwords on it.
I know. It's like the very first Mac I had was one of those one-piece Macs with a 3.5-inch floppy thing, and it was a 5 megabyte hard drive. So nowadays, 128 gigabytes isn't nearly enough. So I decided, instead of getting a new hard drive to put into this, I decided to get an iCloud drive, and I did a couple of terabytes with that. I think the iCloud drive is one of those drives where you can expect a certain level of privacy. I haven't read all of the terms of the terms of service or whatever, but what I did read seemed like it was okay. You can put your stuff here, and they're not going to be reading it or whatever. So, and that's something really important for real estate people, is where you store your documents. You have to make sure that it's a place that's safe for your clients.
I have to tell you a quick story. So we've had a private server since 1998. You know me, I've been in computers since 1966. Yeah.
You invented the internet.
Yeah, I'm just about.
With Al Gore. Her and Al Gore sat down together and
he called you, and that was it.
Right.
And so we have our own. From that moment, I mean, I understood, but getting the agents to understand that they couldn't store their data anywhere but on our server. Now, who do you think they didn't trust? I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. And so then but we made it mandatory, and we also made it mandatory for them to use. We had our own emails, SMTP.
Yeah.
Yes, we had our, and very secure. And again, they didn't want us seeing their emails. It's like, you guys don't understand. But for a couple years, we were very good. Everybody complied. And then after the foreclosure bust, everybody kind of went on their, I don't know what happened during that time frame, but everybody kind of went on and did their own thing, and they wouldn't use the server anymore. And we would back it up for them. They could never lose their data. Nobody could ever get their data, and it just amazed me. I said, I just put my hands up. I said, okay, fine. You guys do what you're going to do. I'm going to protect me and my, my immediate team and staff. Mm-hmm. That's all we could do. It just amazed me.
That was one of the excuses in that article for NBC Bay Area. If anybody wants to Google it, you can Google NBC Bay Area. They failed to protect my money. That's the title of the article.
Wow.
And so they talked about, again, with the realtors, a lot of them use Gmail or some free email service. And the reason the realtor said is, well, what if I change companies? Then I don't want to be dependent upon the other email. My argument is, you should be Googleable anyway, right? If somebody Googles you, they can find your Facebook account, your business page, those things.
Right.
Well, nowadays people have several email addresses anyway.
Right. And it's so the commissioner basically said that's no excuse. That's
No
not an excuse
excuse.
to put your clients at
Right.
risk.
You can get your own personalized email for, $10 a month or something like that on any various hosts that are out there right now.
Well, it's kind of like if you were running around with one of those Vistaprint cards and you did the free version, so it says on the back,
Right.
Vistaprint. It's like, what does that say about your confidence in your investment in your business?
In yourself, right?
Yeah. So if you're running around with Gmail or AOL or whatever, it's like, this person isn't really that serious.
Right? Can you imagine like the president or the CEO of Google, using a Yahoo account because that's what he created 30 years ago. You know, what I mean, the president of Wells Fargo Bank, right? At gmail.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a lot of confidence. So,
well, and again, that movie, The Creepy Line, is definitely something worth watching to see. You'd be amazed at how many places Google has crept into, and with their G Suite. And so, what I teach though is not to use the Gmail address. You can still use the system. There's a way to use Google's system without using the address, and so that's one part of what I teach in the class as well.
Wow, this is great. Yeah, I mean, no one thinks about it until one of their clients loses $300,000, right? And their career is over, and they're going through years of litigation, and they won't be able to work in real estate ever again because their license gets revoked for negligence.
Right.
This is one of those risks that doesn't quite happen to everybody all at once, but it is a risk that changes your life. And when that's big of a risk, you got to pay attention for sure. Cybersecurity. I mean, back to the Alexa thing. That's why our company, I work in the financial services, and they're like, you cannot have a Alexa device anywhere around you, when you're conducting our business, because we do, obviously business with account numbers and things of that nature. And that's why you got to pay attention to now. I mean, realtors need to pay attention. And this is what separates you from being a professional, realtor that's going to survive and thrive in this business, and someone that's going to burn out or eventually put yourself and your family at risk financially by not paying attention. So, no, I mean, what you're proposing here, Jack, is right on. Actually, part of any type of financial services training, right? There's a big focus on cybersecurity training, and actually our company has one. We have to renew it every year because of the sensitivity of it. And in the real estate industry, it shouldn't be any different because you're dealing with large transactions there.
And also, Max, when Jack was giving a class, I told everybody that there is cyber insurance. And it's either through your E&O carrier, or you can get it through your regular insurance company. But every agent should have it. And of course, they expect the broker to have it for them. And I said, no, you have to get it for yourself. I'll get it to protect, us, the brokers and the staff. But you have to get it for yourself. You have to be protected personally, because it's a new world, and we don't know exactly what the laws, and maybe Jack, but if somebody does get sued, I think at the end of the day, it's not going to be on the broker for cyber crimes.
Right. Well, and I keep telling brokers, you need to have a cyber policy in your office, and make agents sign something that says, here's the expectations of how you're going to handle certain information and things like that. This is what we tell you to do, and I think every broker should have an entire cyber policy, like policies and procedures within their office. And so
I think we're going to see that, Jack, and I think that you're really blazing the trail, and I'm so happy to be part of it. And I think we're going to have another class July 20th from 10 to 1. And for all the realtors out there, it is an ethics CE class, and I'm going to help Jack get it required by every agent. I'm going to be on the trail with you there, because I can't tell you what the future. We don't know what we don't know, and that's what we have to be afraid of.
And a lot of times,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, civil lawsuits, negligence, if you read the law, is not an excuse and not a get out of free jail card for you to get sued against. I mean, so this is a big deal.
I told the commission was, look, this is not something that you can try to penalize after it happens, because a lot of times there's no remedy. That the criminals are in some other country, right? So the best practice on this subject is prevention, education and prevention. And so
Absolutely.
that's what I've been pushing to them. And you know, Ruth and I and that detective are going to collaborate on the standards that need to be set for anyone that wants to teach a subject to realtors. There's certain standards we want to kind of make sure there's a minimum standard that they're teaching, um, so that the right information is getting out there to the licensees, because it's amazing how little they know. In
Yeah.
fact, from the class we did in the first class we did with yours, you see over and over again the reviews are saying this should be required for all realtors. This should be required. Everyone should take this class over and over. They
Yes.
know it once they take the class.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Cookie
So-
has a lot of questions here. Let's see
Yeah.
if we can't just answer her questions. Cookie, this drive I have is a Seagate portable drive. It's 5 terabytes to answer that question. And is the email that GoDaddy offers my best choice for more secure email?
it's a server, and it's going to be as secure as any other server. Like I've got 2 different server companies that I use, and my email, you know, sits on there and then pipes into my iMail, which is like an Outlook, but it's Mac version. Even these things now, this is 128 gigabytes. This little thing
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
they make them even bigger than that. I think they make them as big as a terabyte now.
They do.
Wow.
They do. I have a couple of
And-
those too.
Yeah, it just blows my mind how much you can put on these little things, you know.
Yeah.
So I have certain backup files on here, and I back up the really important stuff 2 and 3 different places just to
Yeah.
make sure.
Me too. So, and Cookie says, if our phones are recording anyway, does Alexa pose a greater issue?
Well, it's kind of the same category. It
Hmm.
really is. And, you know, in my second course, which Cookie's going to be taking because she signed up for the SciPro designation, she's going to see a couple of videos from Tucker Carlson where one of them, he has a reporter go out with 2 Android phones. And one of them is turned off. The other one has the chip out, and it's on airplane mode. And both recorded everywhere they went. Like, not words, but it recorded all the locations. So these phones are active when we think they're not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You've got Siri on one, and you've got OK Google or whatever on the other, and so they're listening because they're trying to, you know, do their job, but they're still listening.
Yeah. And
Right.
Miss Cookie wants to know if you have to be a realtor to take the class. I don't think so. We let people take classes.
No, in fact, I was just talking to a lawyer who has been, you know, working with the Supreme Court of Nevada for many years as an arbitrator and stuff. I happened to just run across him, and I told him what I was doing. He said, "Huh, that'd be good for our community too." And I said, "Yeah, okay. If you can help me get into the legal community, then I'll start teaching all of them the same things." Because again, with the passwords, most websites you go to, they tell you, "Oh, just make a password with at least 8 characters, a number, letter, symbol," and that's just not good advice. It just gives people the impression that that's safe, and it's not. So that's just the first thing.
Right. Well, Jack, you're a wealth of information,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Cookie
and-
had another question real quick. If you forward your Gmail to your GoDaddy, is it more secure?
Yeah, I mean, it's the idea behind the Gmail. Really, the first problem is giving that Gmail address to clients. That gives the opportunity for criminals to copy that Gmail address, and then, you know, one letter different, and pretend they're you directly with your clients, right? That's so using the Gmail address is the really first step of a bad
so
thing.
she's got it reversed, though. Her
But-
GoDaddy should forward to her Gmail.
Well,
Like-
you could. Well, actually, there's an exact way to do it that works best. Because if you try, the ideal thing is when you have your Gmail account, you have Gmail go to your server and pull the email. You don't push it to Gmail. You have
Right.
Gmail pull it. So there's
Right.
a certain way to do that. And in my second class, I have a demo video on how to do that.
Okay,
So,
good.
I mean, really, the idea is I'm teaching here's the problems, but I also teach the solutions.
The solutions,
They
right.
Talk about the problems if you don't have any ideas on how to fix them. So.
Well, we're going to be on that trail, I'll tell you. I'm just, and I'm going to boost this out to the surrounding states, and yeah, this is like a requirement. I think eventually, I don't know if you've talked to NAR yet, but I think this should be required of every realtor in the country.
Well, and our part of their ethics, their code of ethics, talks about how realtors need to protect their clients.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
whatever. And so it's an ethical thing, really, and that's
Yeah.
part of the argument I used when I, you know, applied to get ethics credits for this. I've also talked to several other state divisions, you know, whatever they call them, depending on the state, like New Jersey and New York and Minnesota. I've talked to different ones, and it's amazing that they're just still not overly aware of the problem here. I mean, everybody knows about wire transfer fraud, but there's so many other issues. There's personal safety issues. There's identity theft. There's so many things out there. So this class tries to cover all the basics of all of that.
It's an awesome class, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
Yeah, it's the forensics of discovering this type of fraud is not quite there yet, right? But when it does catch up to it, and they can trace where certain things happen, then liability is going to start to come up, and pointing the finger and the blame is going to come up. So now's a great time to get ahead of this. I mean, the financial industry has been on top of this for probably the last decade already, because the advent of email and stuff like that. And it's a requirement in our industry to understand this and for companies to protect themselves. So, this is very timely.
Commissioner in California, and I talked to him and I said, look, you said you want to investigate agents for negligence when this kind of thing happens, but what standards have you put out there for them?
Exactly.
Do you have any expectations you've explained to them on this stuff? And if you don't, then how are you going to really be able to enforce something you're not teaching or you're not setting the level for? So I told him, I said, that's where it starts. And of course, again, prevention is way better in this situation than trying to penalize people after the fact.
Prevention is always better in every situation here, Jay.
Yeah. What did they say? What was it, Ben Franklin that said? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah, something like that. Perfect. Yeah. Well, this was much more entertaining, Jack, than I had anticipated. Because I'm like, Ruth, cybersecurity. Wait till you see me in class, right? Like cybersecurity was snoozer. Then I saw you with your headset. I'm like, okay, this guy's onto something. He's legit. Yeah. No, appreciate you coming on, Ruth. Any last words actually from Jack? Any last thoughts before we end the show? And then Ruth is going to wrap up with some dates and training.
Well, it's just bottom line is everybody needs to spend more time learning how to, learning how not just to use the technology, but how to protect their information. So however you learn to do it. Again, my class is sort of one of those things that I've looked at all the main key areas and tried to, put it into a class that makes sense for realtors. And my background in real estate helps me to explain it in that light. So
yeah, and do me a huge favor, please. Please, Jack, because you have the personality to do it, right? Because all the cybersecurity training, just frankly, all the corporate type of training out there when they create these videos, techniques, right? Very dry, very boring, and a snoozer to sit through, right? I mean, if you can, I think there's a need and a niche in this industry around training to make it, to add some level of entertainment or variety in there, so it's just not like here are the facts and robotic and training, because people don't really pay attention, right? I mean, what we've learned, what everybody should learn through the advent of social media now and the production of content is that whether it's education or something that's not, when you're learning something, you have to be emotionally engaged in some way. And if you don't laugh, if you don't cry, if you don't, whatever, you're going to tune out real quick. And so please make videos that move us, right?
Yeah.
Tap into our fears, tap into, but be entertaining a little bit, because then people will pay attention a little bit more and understand, oh, that guy, Jack, yeah, he was funny about that, but you know what? That was a serious matter, And the reason why I say that is there's a guy named JP Sears out there. I don't know if you've seen him on Facebook, but he's like the spiritual guy. He doesn't mock spirituality, because he actually, if you look at his background, he talks about how he came from being a personal coach, and he's creating these videos that are satirical about spirituality, about current topics, but he adds so much humor to it that, much like Jon Stewart did on The Daily Show, right? I don't know if you ever watched The Daily Show on Comedy Central, but because he talked about serious subjects, but he did it in a way that tapped into, our emotional aspect and made us laugh about it. It made us think, and we paid attention. And that's what we need to do with corporate training, because I don't know who invented the idea that corporate training needs to be this stiff. Do you know what I'm saying? People don't want to pay attention to that, and they just.
It reminds me of the birthday scene in the movie Office Space, if you've ever seen that, which is it's kind of a cult hit movie back in the late '90s. But
yeah, absolutely.
The boss's birthday, and everyone's like, "Happy birthday!"
Yeah.
Because they had to, right? So,
right. That's right. It was the lady, right? Or what? Oh, yeah, the boss, right?
Your class is very interesting, and I was going to suggest that we get maybe some clips from the creepy line.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think I might have some. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he inserts videos, and he inserts some humor. He's very you don't fall asleep in Jack's class.
Yeah, Jack.
Well, and I took a chance. I had one of the commissioners after the commission meetings. I told one of the commissioners to attend this class, so she did. And when I asked her later, I said, "Be brutal. Tell me what you think." And she said, "You know what? You had a lot of good little things in there. You had mixed in video and graphics and things." So she said that she thought it was good with the material that I presented. So I thought that was a huge compliment. And
Yes.
Jimmy Dagg's taking the class, and he's of course a very experienced trainer. So he said that was good too. So if those kind of people think the class was good, then I feel like I'm on track. I'm still always
You're on
trying to
track.
improve.
Good.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you have to with training, because I mean the line keeps moving. It
Like
really
the creepy
does.
line? The creepy line?
No, not the creep. Well, the creepy line, exactly. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, but I mean, there's more and more things that we get hacked on. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
and you think you're safe, and then all of a sudden, I mean, my email got hacked a couple of weeks ago, and I was sending pornographic material out to everybody in my database.
I
mean,
always
and
knew that about you.
All right. Ruth.
There's a dark side, huh?
Right.
Well, and that's one of the subjects I talk about in the class is a scam called sextortion, where you get these
Yeah.
these emails from people that say, "Hey, we took over your
Right.
camera, and we videoed you, and you have to pay us to not release it," and
Right.
it's all a scam. But
I got
Yeah,
one the other day,
did you?
a week ago, right? And they're like, "Your desktop." I'm like, "One, I don't use a desktop anymore."
Right.
Right. So.
Well, and that's also something I talk about too, is the difference between phishing and spear phishing. Phishing is when they just generally throw out Bank of America, card alert to 1 million people, and maybe only 100,000 of them have a Bank of America account. But spear phishing is when they go into your social media and they see that, well, you've checked into or you've liked Bank of America, so let's target them with a Bank of America thing because they're more
Right.
likely to believe it, right?
Right.
So
Right. No, and
those are some
interestingly
tricks they
enough, in this email, why it made him look at so more legitimate was they actually had a password that I used from a
Yep.
very long account
from
ago.
a hacked database. Yeah.
Right, from a hacked database. I'm like, wow. So I started looking, where did I use this password?
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, and I remember it, where it was, and actually, I think it was an old Facebook account actually. From a
Well, and
long time
Yahoo
ago.
got hacked, all 3 million accounts back in 2013. So if you had a Yahoo account before that, one of those passwords is out there for sure. That's one of the things LastPass does is they do a security check, and they'll give you, okay, here's your email addresses that have been in hacked databases. So you might want to check your passwords for any of those.
Interesting.
So it kind of helps you to chase down some of those vulnerabilities.
Well, Jack, you inspired me to go out and change all my passwords today. So
that's the goal.
Really? Yeah.
seriously, I mean, we don't really think about it, but until you go through a situation where your account's been hacked or a client's account's been hacked, you go through this stuff. It is a pain, right?
Yeah.
It costs
we
money
all want
and
it to
time.
be easy. And the funny
Right.
thing is, LastPass was a learning curve for me. It took a time for me to get used to how it worked. But now I love it because everywhere I go, I can log into LastPass.com on any computer and copy my password from somewhere and log into anything. I never have to worry about, I mean, stories I've heard of people, how they store their passwords. It's just hilarious. Like, oh, yeah, I've got this book next to my desk. And it's like, well, what if somebody steals the book? Or what if your
Right.
office burns down or whatever? You're just really in trouble then. So,
Yeah.
but LastPass.
Well, it's a new world, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Good stuff. Well, glad to have you on, Jack.
Thank you
Ruth,
for having me.
Yes.
yeah, last words. Any training dates?
Yes, we have lots of training on, if you go to b.vegas, bee.vegas, July the 8th, we have ethics, 3 core CE. July 11th, we have contracts, 3 core CE. And July 24th, we have agency, 3 core CE. And then 27th, we have law, 3 core CE. So in July, every week but the first week, there is a core class to renew your license. And then on the 20th, I'm going to post on the calendar later today that we're going to have Jack back with another cybersecurity class from 10 to 1. And we're going to start that rolling.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Lots of
great show
training.
today. Yeah, great show today, Jack. Appreciate you coming on. Very
Thank you.
timely information.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So have a great week, everybody. And,
We love you.
Yeah. And 4th of July is next Saturday. So,
Oh my gosh, it is. It is.